All right, welcome back to precisealgorithmtrading.com. It is Thursday, July 20th, 2023. Let's see where we are in the markets. So, this is the S&P 500. This is the daily chart in the middle, hourly on the right, weekly on the left. And I'm going to pop this one up here because I think it's handy to see clearer price action. I could probably take some criticism for too many lines on my charts, and that's all well and good. But I'm constantly working on trying to get rid of stuff and make it clearer. But the ones I'm using right now have been working really well, so um, they're all on here for a reason. So, anyways, I talked about this yesterday on the SPX, and that was a spinning top doji actually, or shooting star, or whatever you want to call that candlestick. And today we got the follow through to the downside, and so that creates um, a pivot high, not necessarily a market structure high, but we need one more down day underneath this candle to make this a really set in stone. Like, this is the pivot, that would be the pivot. It probably will be, I can tell you that. This is a pivot here. This is a pivot there. That was a pivot there, because you have ultimately on both sides, that I think that's the high in that pivot. I don't think that was. You'd have to actually care to look at that the actual highs of those. Right now I don't, but I'm trying to give you the framework of what a pivot looks like. And then you have the pivots to the downside as well. And that, I believe, is one. This is one. That might be one. Well, it is one. It's just a matter of those are really close. So that's almost a double bottom. Yada yada. So we were up here above the 3 ATR Keltner channel, and we've pulled back inside. So the likelihood now is that we're going to get another day like that at least. And I think this thing can unwind back to the mean, because it's been pulling away from it for so long, and now we're going to pull back. And one of these days it's going to pull back really hard, which today looks hard in some people's worlds, but in the scheme of things, it's really not that big a deal. On the hourly chart, you can see that it really started to go back down, and this is a much bigger red move than the previous red move. And you can see we had a previous red move like that, and a pull up into a green move that faded back into a red move. So from here, we watch for more downside in the red, and we watch for this indicator in the middle here to turn red. This one's already red, and what we are oversold. So this indicator at the bottom gives us overbought and oversold. Two different ways to look at it. However, that's one way of looking at where we are at oversold, and it appears to be that in that zone now. So what's that mean? Can we pull back up? Sure, we can pull up and put in basically a new pivot high that ends up failing to the downside, because it won't be a higher high, it'll be a lower high. So if you follow all that, great. If you don't, stay tuned, and we'll do more of this as we go forward. So the S&P was down 30 points today, or 0.68%. And what's really cool in the face of all that is I am long Dow stocks more, and the Dow actual exchange traded funds, or ETFs, and those powered higher today by 163 points. So I'm basically bearish to sideways on SPX and NASDAQ, and the NASDAQ went down by 2.05% today, and I'm bullish on the Dow, and those stocks went up today, and it's all because of these indicators for me. Now the Dow, something to be aware of, and I called this out. That was a topping looking pattern yesterday, and it still went higher. We are still above the 3 ATR. That doesn't mean it can't go higher. It just means this is a sort of a danger zone, and be aware. If it pulls back inside, I actually expect to still get more upside eventually out of the Dow. That doesn't mean we can't have some rough days while it's happening. All right. and everything's green, green, and green, and this is red on the hourly chart. Looks like it fell in the last hour or so of trading, and that's pulling back to the a little bit before we can go higher is actually fine because it just gives you more. It lets it take a breath before we can really go higher. And you can also see right here on the daily, those dotted lines, that white dotted line right there is two average true ranges from the mean that it was at last week. So it has gone pretty far, bottom line. And tomorrow's Friday. Fridays tend to be people like to close the books and book a week and sell off things for the weekend. So the short-term traders I'm talking about, and that can affect the markets. So that was the SPX and the DJI. We'll look at the Russell, which went down by 0.89% today, and in the scheme of things has been relatively strong. But it's also, I mean, when the markets go down, most of them tend to go with each other, so not a surprise. The NASDAQ is the big loser for the day, and it's been powering higher. So, giving back some here for a short-term period, not a big deal in the scheme of things. In fact, again, it could be constructive because the weekly chart has just been on fire. Oil has been on this pullback. I got some alerts in here to be able to pick up on what it's doing in the morning because I'm actually considering getting long again, only because this fresh move here on the daily, if it continues to be good and powerful on the hourly, it'll support the daily, which could turn into the weekly and could turn into a nice trade. And we're still watching these Harvard lines, the gold Harvard line for a close at the end of the month. And now we're on July 20th. And we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm literally going to, if we get above that line for the month, that's a long-term buy signal. Potential. IYT, which is the transports, actually just went sideways today, up by 0.07% or hardly anything, and yeah, I would expect this to have some short-term weakness as well, or sideways action. And that is what I got to say about that. Let's move over to stockcharts.com and do a quick buzz through the bullish percent indexes. Nice stuff. BPNYA, I'm sorry, the industrials. They actually tacked on some X's today, and they put on the point and figure buy signal, or they added to it, I should say. That is nice and powerful. Good looking stuff, and we are above 76. So a move back below 70 could be detrimental from here. But there's no reason to say we can't power up here into this 84 range like we have been in the past. We'll just keep our eye on it. The NYA just basically went sideways, up by 0.08% today. The transports still at 100%. They need a big catalyst move down to really get this thing going into a new column of O's, and once that happens, I think the transports will. I mean, if you look at what happens when these, here I'm going to pull this up. Literally at these high levels like this and this one jockeyed around for a little while before it went here and here. You get these big sell-off columns of O's. Big sell-off column of O's. This one, like I say, moved around for a bit, but then did that big sell-off column of O's. So if we get a move 3 boxes like that, that is the new sell signal, and it could all come down pretty hard. We could even get some back and forth from down here and then back up again and then back down again before we get a major sell-off. So that would actually not be a big deal, and again could keep the markets going higher for a bit while the industrials or the transports just move around inside of this 100% down to 70, which is all considered overbought territory. But most people won't be really buying in this zone if they're tuned into this type of action because they'd be afraid of that sell-off. Well, if we get the right signals, we'll buy and sell all the way through that. The SPX minus 0.0 or minus 0.5% today, so no big deal. The OEX actually tacked on a new X today, but then also went down by 1.39%. If you want to do how that works, that means it went up enough to get a new box, but ultimately closed down on the day. So it's a little unusual, but it happens. And then the NDX, same thing, and actually that's a much bigger move. Minus 4.94% after tacking on an X is a little creepy, because I think we're going to see some rough action here for a little bit, and then just get everybody stoked up enough to the downside where this thing could rip their faces off and go back to the upside again. But again, we'll just watch the signals and play the individual markets. So then last but not least, our automatic trading systems. The YM moved around a little bit today, but didn't really end up doing much. We had some winners, we had some losers, and in the scheme of things, it looks fine. The Russell didn't trade today, but I threw on the long-term chart since it wasn't working yesterday, and this is what the latest little price action, or not price action, but equity action happens in our equity curve. So we've been up a little bit lately. We just need to get some of this action going again and get this thing going back up and off the chart, and that would be wonderful for our accounts. The NASDAQ did some back and forth today, no major thing, and at the end of the day, it's still fine too. So that's what we got for you guys for tonight. Take care, guys, and have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.